late 90s, early 2000s were the golden age of rom-coms, and at the forefront of the pack is the 1998 classic You've Got Mail. I think pretty much everyone has seen You've Got Mail. It's actually a very loose remake of a movie that was made in 1940 called The Shop Around the Corner, which was actually based on a Hungarian play that was published in 1936. You've Got Mail stars Meg Ryan as Kathleen Kelly. She's the owner of a small independent bookstore in New York City, which is called The Shop Around the Corner as a little homage to the 1940 film. And the store is beloved in the neighborhood. Kathleen actually inherited the store from her mother, so it's been kind of a neighborhood staple for, I'm guessing, decades. Until a Fox Books, which is a clear proxy for Barnes & Noble, announces that it's going to be opening up in the same neighborhood. Fox Books is owned by Joe Fox, played by Tom Hanks, and since Fox Books is essentially driving the Shop Around the Corner out of business, as Barnes & Noble did in real life to many small independent bookstores, Kathleen Kelly and Joe Fox have a very contemptuous professional relationship. But they don't realize that the other person is actually the secret online pen pal that they've been corresponding with for a while. And while the two pen pals are kind of indirectly falling in love, they don't know that they actually know each other and hate each other in real life. Romantic misunderstandings. So that's the premise of the movie. But what I want to talk about is the ending, and not the very last scene where Kathleen Kelly finally decides to meet her online pen pal and discovers that it's Joe Fox and the two of them kiss and it's romantic, yay, happily ever after. Not that. Prior to that, Fox Books does successfully drive the Shop Around the Corner 100% out of business. You know, how all great relationships start. And there's this very poignant scene where Kathleen Kelly is closing up her shop, presumably for the last time. As she's leaving, she looks back into the dark and empty store, and she sees this sort of ghost memory of herself as a little girl dancing with her mother in the shop, and she kind of smiles and closes the door. And the whole scene has this sense of finality that actually feels like it should be the end of the movie, and that everything that happens after that is kind of awkwardly tacked on to make it less depressing. Like, there's a weird shift in tone between this scene of Kathleen Kelly losing her livelihood, closing the shop, which is the biggest remnant she had of her late mother, and the shift to back into romantic comedy. Oh, misunderstandings, breakups, oh, they're falling in love, blah, blah, blah. It's very realistic that Fox Books was able to drive the smaller independent bookstore out of business, because that's what was essentially happening when Barnes & Noble and even Borders were at their prime. They were driving the little bookstores out of business. So it's very realistic in that sense, but it's also a very odd choice for a romance movie to have the two romantic leads, like have one of them completely ruin the other one's livelihood. It's weird, but even that's not what it is that I wanted to specifically talk about. The scene I want to talk about comes after that. Following the closing of Kathleen's store, Joe decides to go to her apartment. How does he know where she lives?
Yeah.
And he calls up from the intercom on the street, and Kathleen says, no, go away, I don't want to see you. But coincidentally, right at that moment, someone is unlocking the door to the building, so Joe just kind of slips inside. He goes up to Kathleen's apartment.
Just go away.
And she sees it's him, and she opens the door, and he kind of like, not shoulders his way inside, but he kind of just maneuvers his way past her inside, and then he shuts the door, and she feels very uncomfortable because she's sick and she's in pajamas, so she tries to put on a trench coat to kind of cover her pajamas. And even though she's sick and dressed kind of weird, there's still a scene where Joe like looks her up and down. He brought her flowers. He tells her that he broke up with his girlfriend or fiance, I can't remember which, but he broke up with his significant other because of course they both had significant others during the course of most of the movie because I guess cheating was okay in 1998. And you still have the dynamic where he knows that the two of them are pen pals, but she doesn't.
What happened with that guy at the cafe?
Nothing.
But you're crazy about it.
Yes, I am.
He tells her that he wants to be friends.
Why did you stop by again? I forget.
I wanted to be your friend.
And there's this weird kind of emotionally manipulative scene where he's like, oh, I guess you hate me. And she says, like, no, I don't hate you.
You're entitled to hate me.
I don't hate you.
And I guess it's supposed to be a scene where they come to some sort of understanding so the relationship can progress, but it still feels very weird.
My head is starting to get fuzzy.
And since she is sick and kind of out of it, she goes and she crawls into bed, and he follows her, and he tucks her in, and he sits on the bed. At one point, he puts his hand over her mouth.
Who?
And it's all just very odd.
Kathleen? I brought you flowers. Oh, I see what you're saying. Whereas I am a horrible person, therefore I have no choice but to be horrible. That's what you're saying.
I don't like the power dynamic of that scene at all.
Is there somebody here?
No.
First, you have the fact that he drove her out of business and she had to close her beloved store. Secondly, you have the fact that he knows that the two of them are online pen pals and falling in love, presumably, but she doesn't know that the online guy is him. He has not shared that knowledge. He is keeping that to himself. And third, she's a woman living alone who's sick, and this man kind of forces his way into her apartment, says he wants to be friends, and won't leave.
Why don't I just put these in some water? And hey, you're sick. You should sit down.
What is this scene? What? Is it supposed to be romantic? I feel like it's supposed to be romantic, but it's really, really creepy. If it were me, that scene would have ended very differently. Like, I have weapons in the house. It would have taken a very strange turn. And then because this is a 90s rom-com, they actually do become friends, and the weird dynamic continues where he knows that they're pen pals, but she doesn't, and they're continuing to correspond with each other as pen pals. And Joe Fox gives Kathleen Kelly advice about her pen pal, knowing it's him, but she doesn't know that it's him.
Your friends are telling you the reason we haven't met is that I'm married. Am I right? So he didn't answer the question.
Yes, he did.
He did not.
Did too.
Until it culminates into that last scene where she's going to meet her pen pal finally, and it's him, and he shows up, and she says something like, I hoped it'd be you, and then they kiss.
I wanted it to be you. I wanted it to be you so badly.
And I guess she's forgiven him for driving her out of business and taking away the largest remnant she had of her late mother and her entire livelihood, and forcing her to start over from scratch after a devastating loss. Yay! Do they use the phrase pen pal in the movie? Or is that just me? Because I feel like pen pal is actually a more antiquated term than having like an AOL Instant Messenger secret boyfriend. Pen pal goes back to the days of letters. Actually, I think in the original The Shop Around the Corner and the Hungarian play, which is called La Parfumerie or something like that. I don't want to pretend that I can pronounce it, so I didn't try to say it earlier. They were actually pen pals. They were corresponding via letters with paper and pen.
My heart was trembling as I walked into the post office, and there you were lying in box 237. I took you out of your envelope and read you. Read you right there.
they were actually co-workers working at the same shop, so there wasn't that weird power dynamic where he drives her out of business and ruins her livelihood, which I think is kind of better. To me, the story just never seems like it fully recovers from his business forcing her business to close, and her business was so tied up with her emotions and her identity and her memories of her mother that I just don't see how they can pursue a romantic relationship after that. They try to address it in the weird apartment scene, but it doesn't ring true to me that they are still able to pursue a relationship. Like, yeah, I could see with the way they've established her character as very kind and actually kind of naive, I could see them becoming friends, but I couldn't see them actually pursuing a romantic relationship after he's cost her her business. Anyway, join me for my next video where I cruelly break down a popular children's book that was published in 1955. Joe Fox gives Kathleen Kelly advice about her pen pal, and he knows that it's him, but she doesn't know that he knows that it's him. Wait. Joe Fox gives Kathleen Kelly advice about her pen pal, and he knows that it's him, but she doesn't know that he's him